So for those that don't know, I'm in the process of writing a book. My book is actually at the editors right now for like the final edits. And then I'm going to insert these. I don't know that I told you this, Shelley, actually. I'm going to insert these case studies in my book, like one case study each chapter. So you're going to be featured in a book too, podcast and book.
There's a first time for everything, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was thinking it would be interesting to do these interviews live in our podcast because I think that, there's a lot of things that go into building a team. I love the micro setup. There's not the micro team setup doesn't necessarily have to look the same for each agent or each team. It can definitely vary, but I think it's important to talk to people that are real and that are willing to share the good times and the bad times and what's working and what's not working. So I can already tell, Shelley, you're going to be a great person to talk to.
Well, thanks.
So thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I am excited to share my ups and downs and bumps along the way. That's for sure.
Awesome. So why don't we just start out by Shelley telling us where are you from?
Sure. So we were just chatting actually. I'm from Pittsburgh, but Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Evidently, there are multiple across the US. So I'm in the western half. A lot of people confuse it with Philadelphia, but I'm in the western half of the state of Pennsylvania.
Okay. And how long have you been selling real estate?
Gosh, I feel like a long, long time, but since 2010. So I technically got licensed in 2009, but yeah, since 2010, I've been practicing solo agent until 2018. So it's been a while.
What made you decide to get into the business?
Oh gosh, that's a long story. So I, in a former life, was a Spanish teacher.
Oh,
Yeah, so my training is in Spanish education, and I taught middle school, I taught high school, advanced classes, all the way down to like elementary. Like we've done it all. And I just realized as I was teaching, I taught for 5-6 years. I realized this isn't super fulfilling for me. And I am just a very much a person that if you're going to devote a large portion of your life to something, you should be happy in that pursuit and should be enjoying it. And it should be something worthwhile. And I just didn't feel that it was. And I also felt that I would never want my children. I didn't have kids back then, but I didn't want ever my children to have a teacher that was less than passionate about their job. Right. And so I knew that I had to make an exit. I didn't know what I wanted to do. So I'm an analytical kind of person. So I started like reading every book I could get my hands on and trying to figure out job shadowed, like everything from interior designers to physical therapists. I'm not joking. It was like life, like soul searching kind of moment for me. And during that time, we bought our first house and we used an agent who's a friend of our family still. And I was just like, hey, Chrissy, like, tell me more about this that you do. Because, of course, from the outside, everyone thinks that it looks like, oh, it's glamorous and you just open doors and all the things. But the more I dove into it, the more I realized there's actually something here. I really kind of like it. So I became her licensed assistant for a little while. I mean, only like 6 months, but then realized that I liked it. And the rest is history, I guess.
I love that. I love that. And it's something that you can definitely be passionate about. I've been talking to my team recently and I've had several of them tell me, I love my job. I love the difference that we get to make in our clients' lives. I mean, it's a very important thing. And also it can mean the difference in a lot of cases between poverty and wealth, really,
Yeah, absolutely.
buying real estate, especially for those first-time home buyers. So
Yes,
yeah.
absolutely.
That's great. So, when did you decide to make your first hire? You were sharing with me earlier that you were a solo agent for 8 years.
Yeah.
So yeah, what was that kind of catalyst that made you feel like I need a change?
Yeah, so I was a solo agent, but I had an assistant, right? So I didn't
Okay.
have a team necessarily, but I had an assistant. And gosh, I was actually just trying to remember what year I hired my first assistant in. And I did wrong. Like she's amazing. And I did so wrong by her because I literally threw everything at her. I was like, okay, now you're marketing and your transaction coordination and you're like gonna, coordinate an event if we have an event. Like Michelle, if you're watching, I love you. But it was probably, I would say, about 4 years in, 5 years in, I decided I was selling about 30 houses a year, 25, 30 houses a year. And I was just like, I really feel like I can't be licking and sticking envelopes for mailers at 11 p.m. anymore, And so I hired her, passed everything off. She was amazing, but it got to the point where, there was too much. She was a mom and she wanted to be at home with her kids, and she wanted something that was like 20 hours a week. And it really ended up being a lot more than that. So yeah, that was the very first. And then it sort of evolved from there. We went into just one marketing person, one transaction coordinator, and there's been various, renditions of it since then. But I think that we finally have the right people in the right seat on the bus now on our team. We have our director of operations, who's just all things admin. And then we have Brooke, who's our transaction coordinator and / marketing. She does marketing for us as well. And she is phenomenal. So I feel like we've got the right people now.
So, how has the team model, the micro team model, which I know you have other agents, but how has having the right people in the right seats and all of that, how has that impacted your business and also production?
Yeah. So I mean, here's the thing. Hiring admin will almost always, if you're doing it right, help you improve or increase your production. And that was a really smart move. And I probably should have done it sooner. I didn't even have a transaction coordinator prior to then. So I think that if I were giving someone new to the business advice, I would say hiring an admin of sorts or a transaction coordinator shouldn't be necessarily a scary thing, because that will help to increase your production. What I think a lot of people have the misconception of, they think, oh, I'm going to hire agents and that's going to bring my production up. I would argue that it does the exact opposite, because I brought on some of the new agents that I brought on brand new, never had done a transaction, hadn't even opened a lockbox. And it's nothing against them, but you just have to understand that you are going to be taking a massive hit to your own production in order to have the bandwidth and time to pour into those agents the way that you should, if you're training them properly. There are plenty of teams out there that bring on agents and literally just like, they're like, oh, here's a desk, go sell some houses. If you're really doing a team model right, you should be pouring into them, and it should take time away from your schedule. And so I would say that, yeah, bringing on the agents definitely hurt my production personally, which is something I don't know that I expected. And we can talk about that later when we talk about profitability. It really is something to consider before you hire somebody.
Oh, that's a really good point. And I want to get to that too, but really, so I don't know if you have your numbers with you or maybe just know like round numbers off the top of your head, but so you were doing averaging like 25 to 30 transactions. You bring on an assistant. How many more transactions were you able to close that next year, or maybe the years following until you started bringing on other agents?
So I don't have those exact progression of numbers, but I can tell you that, I was doing like 25-ish to 30 maybe whenever I hired Michelle. And then, in the past few years, we've been averaging like 50. So, I mean, it's a nice, until this past year where I had 2 babies in 2 years also. So there is that I don't want to blame it entirely on training agents, but my production these past 2 years has been significantly lower than it was. But I do think having that staff is what catapulted me from that 30 to 50 mark within just a couple years.
Yeah. And that's what I tell our students. I believe that any hire you make should be bringing money into your business if you do it right. Because even if they're not personally generating the lead or, helping to get the new business, they should be freeing your time up enough so that you're able to do that. Right.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, and you as a leader, to add on to that, also need to have the focus so that when you bring on admin staff, the time that they free up for you, you need to use it to be in your business, right? Because a lot of times I feel like agents, oh, I have someone doing my mailings now, so I'm just going to do some more marketing or something fun and play on Canva for 4 hours. You really need to be trying to produce as much as you can during that time to make the most of it so that you can then pay the admin and still make money on top of it, you know?
Yeah, totally. And I was going to say, as far as being a team leader, I think that it really changes, or when you hire your first assistant, okay, it changes your mentality from this is something fun, this is a hobby, this is, almost more like a part-time thing. There's not a whole lot of accountability to yourself or to others doing it 100% on your own. But the moment you bring on an assistant,
Yep.
it's like, okay, now I have somebody else's salary to pay. Now I have someone else's mortgage to pay. And so the other thing is you think about what do you expect for what they're going to be paid, and knowing that I really want them to come and work. So am I actually a good employee for myself? Am I showing up for myself and for my team the way I need to be? I talk about in my book, there's a whole section about you have to be your first hire. And as those real estate agents, it's like we just don't hold ourselves accountable. We
Yeah.
just don't, you know. And you have to ask yourself, would I hire myself, or would I keep myself employed if I was showing up the way I have been the last month or 2 months? You know what I mean?
I totally agree. And I had this kind of a mental note to talk about this later, but it kind of piggyback off of what you're saying right now. It's just that, if you are not account like if you are hiring people in order to escape certain parts of your job, okay, you might be able to do that with admin, but if you're hiring agents in order to escape portions of your job, you're doing it all wrong, because you cannot expect them to do things that you yourself are not willing to do. So if you don't like prospecting, yet you're going to expect them to prospect for business, you're not the right type for a leader, for a leader.
Right. That's a good point. That's a good point. Well, let's talk about that. Let's go ahead and talk about if you know your profit margin with just admin, because I know you have some agents, but you can share either number that you have prepared. And then let's talk about, why did you decide to hire an agent? What would you say to somebody who is considering bringing an agent on?
Right. There is so much to unpack there. So where do we start? So as a solo agent, I mean, obviously, pretty much everything you make goes into your pocket. So that part was easy. The first 8 years, or the first 5 years before I hired Michelle. And even then, afterwards, I wasn't spending a ton on marketing. Her salary was all of, I don't know, 15K a year. It wasn't really significant. And then when I started hiring multiple staff and bringing on agents, I mean, at the very beginning, well, when I just had 2 admin, I mean, my profitability, I might have been at like 20%, something like that. But what really, I mean, and I'm going to be completely honest, is, and I'm apologizing because I went to the Apple store and my notifications are still on my computer. And if you hear dinging, my apologies.
Oh,
But so what really hurts is that a lot of times you are told via YouTube, coaching program, whatever it is, that you need to go out and build and scale and you need to go big. And I did that, right? Last year. We were in the midst of having our second child in 2 years. We decided a space became available, and I've always wanted to have like a retail kind of feel, boutique space. And so that, I think, even if it had come along at a different time, I think we still would have taken the jump. But in the midst of all of this, we decided to do it. 2 babies, buying new vehicles because our kids wouldn't fit in the cars, really buying furniture for the office, bringing on new agents that required me to pour into them. And we grew probably too quickly. And now what I'm realizing, we were not profitable. We were in negative number land. Like, it was bad. So you're asking me
yep.
profitability, it's negative. Like I
That's not. Oh,
money.
did you freeze?
Oh, are you there?
Okay, I think Shelley froze. She's coming back. But yeah, that is such a good point, though, Shelley. Okay, you're back. Can you hear me
Yay.
now? Okay. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. I know that it's not easy to ever share like something that there was a loss or something that didn't work out well. In fact, I'm planning on writing a post. I haven't done it yet, but about how the traditional team model basically nearly bankrupted my family.
Mm,
It just didn't work. did
Yeah.
not work. Hiring and doing the traditional splits and having the thing is, you bring on agents, you really should have leads to give them.
Mhm.
Otherwise, it's going to be very hard to keep someone long term. Yes, you can plug them into your systems. Yes, you can give them training, but then really, what are you? Are you really a team leader? I mean, I don't know. So tell me more about the negative territory.
It was a really rude awakening, especially when we were on such a high. I think that was the problem because the market was so hot going through COVID and post COVID that it was easy to float along, not realizing the fact that we weren't as profitable as we thought we were. And so when the market turned, because interest rates doubled, as you all know, and our listings all of a sudden aren't moving, and our buyers all of a sudden are saying, "Oh, we're not even jumping in," because that's when, I mean, it nearly took us out. It nearly took us out. And that was just this past year. So it is incredibly fresh, and we are making great progress to climb back out. And I'm super excited about the future of our company. But all that to say that there is no one way to build a team. You need to do what's right for you. And just because somebody tells you you need to have 50 agents in order to be profitable, I would question that. You just really need to figure out what's the right size for you and make sure you're tracking. You best believe I'm tracking every dollar that goes out now, because we have learned the hard way that you need to watch that. And if you're going to be a team leader, that needs to be like priority numero uno when Monday morning hits, that you are looking at your expenses and you're figuring out where you're going and where your money is, what your money's doing for you. Because otherwise, in this business, especially as volatile as it is sometimes, it will bite you, and it won't be easy.
Yeah. And you were sharing with me earlier that you decided to bring on agents originally because you are part of a program, and we don't need to discuss like what it is, but you were being encouraged to hire agents, and you thought that your production would go up. You thought, all of these great things would happen, and it kind of had the opposite effect.
Yeah, I think that you hear it all over, and it doesn't have to be even just on one coaching program or one, like, I mean, everywhere, this whole hustle
True.
mindset, and you've got to build, build, build. And American culture in general is all about like, what can we do that's more and take on more? And actually, literally, this past year have been in like a period of no, and a period of like scale back, and a period of like choose what really is important and what matters. Because in pruning, like a garden, for example, sometimes you actually have to prune in order to grow. Smaller is not necessarily a bad thing. So in terms of bringing on agents and how that affected our profitability, is that what you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, well, like I said before, if you're bringing on people in order to be more profitable, agents probably aren't going to immediately do that unless you are able to get agents who are already producing. That may bring some additional revenue right away. But the honest to goodness truth is, if you're a fledgling team, you're probably not going to have enough, unique value proposition to throw at them to be able to get those experienced agents on your team. So more than likely you will have to start with somebody who needs some coaching, who needs, help from the ground up. And so it's not going to make you more profitable. You're
Right.
going to lose time in training them. And so that was hard for me. And it also, something to note, we had agents that weren't the right fit, not necessarily bad people. They just weren't the right fit for our team. They maybe needed to be a solo agent rather than on a team. And so I've really sharpened my skill and become a lot more selective in interviewing people and who we bring on, because I know what it's going to take from my schedule to pour into them. And I have to make sure that that's worth it.
Shelley, have you ever noticed that since you're a salesman or a saleswoman, and I'm the same way, like in interviews process, I if I don't catch myself, I tend to sell the team.
100%. Yes. We're used to selling things. That's what we
Yeah.
do. but I also do think that it's because we don't believe in our own value.
Right.
Like you are an agent. If you're building a team, my assumption would be that you have some sort of success under your belt. At least, even if if you're not a huge team, but at least you've got like, I sell 50 houses a year or something that you can draw people in with. So you need to believe in that too, because if you don't, then you're going to revert to old habits, which is like, I've got to get the listing. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. That's what I did. I feel whenever I first started this process, which I started so I had some pretty crazy success when I opened my brokerage. I broke my boutique brokerage, and that was in 2015. And in 16, I had people like starting to come to me, "Hey, I see what you're doing. I want to come work for you." And these were all brand new agents. So from like 16 to 19, I had like 15 different agents come through my doors that I trained. And, it's what happened was I ended up sacrificing my own business to help them build and grow and learn. And, that's what a broker or team leader really should do, but at the expense of my family. And so they left because obviously it wasn't working for anyone. And then I decided, oh, maybe I need to focus on my own business and have people to help me with my business. And that's what the micro team is all about. It's one agent that is building a repeat referral business over time. I now have 20 years under my belt, and I have, a really large database and a ton of past clients. And I want to continue to build that and to give them a consistent experience time after time, and not confuse that with, oh, well, here's an agent that can work with you. And here's, this agent. No, I want it to be me, but with my staff. And the model we have right now, I work less than 20 hours in my business. I'm still the face of everything. I do the negotiation. I fit in where I want to fit in and where I excel at, and my team does the rest. And our profit has never been better. The culture has never been better. I'm really excited about the future. I know that I'm not sacrificing, because when you give someone a lead, you're also giving them future business, right?
Yeah.
The value of that lead is huge.
It so is. Well, and it's just another relationship. And that's the thing. That's a human being. That if you're passing them off to somebody who is not going to service them properly, that's really sort of, mistreatment, I guess you could say, on your part.
Well, but sometimes you don't know. Like, I think I had every good intention and feeling like these people that were working with me would be there forever, and it just doesn't work that way. But anyway, yeah, go ahead.
I totally agree. Well, and it's not easy. And what I would say too is, and I think we were talking about this earlier, I don't think it's been said yet live, but if you think that building a team is going to solve all of your problems, and for a little while I thought it might for me too, and then I got wise. But no, if you're looking for more bandwidth in your schedule, if you're looking for, time, having a team to a degree will give you that. Like maybe you have someone that takes your showings and things like that. But if you're going for the whole big team approach, the amount of added stress and added time of mentoring agents, taking the got-a-minute calls, trying to train people when they first come on, like that. And then, just ongoing training that you're doing and development, of your, the people in your ecosystem, that takes time. So what you may gain in having someone to pass your excess leads off to, you're going to probably lose in just the extra stuff you're going to have to do to help maintain that team. So I love the idea of a micro team because of that, because you still are really kind of focusing on your own business. I don't know. I enjoy education so much. So I think that there is a place for some people to take a medium size or even a larger. I mean, I have friends that have 30 plus agents and they love it. And I'm like, good for you. You rock it. But for me in my season of life, and I want to I want to pour into the people that are on my team, and I can't do that and have that personalized experience if there are 45 of them. It's just really hard to do. So I think that you've got to know yourself and
Yeah.
what your bandwidth and your season of life is and what your goals are. Like, is your goal that you just want a couple extra bucks a year so that you can invest in a rental property? Great. You can do that by building your own business. You don't
Yeah.
have to build a team to do that, you know?
Yeah. Well, and that's I want to make sure everyone understands, we're talking about the micro team and how I am anti skipping the process.
Mm.
That's really more what I'm against. I think that the mega teams, the successful mega teams, they have the foundation. So yeah, it makes sense for them to leverage and scale but a lot of them, that the ones that aren't successful, they don't have the dialed in systems. They don't have that foundation laid. And so they're kind of floundering, with success, really. They're floundering with their profitability. And if I think about it, what it was really eye-opening to me. So I'm with EXP, and I'm part of this group called the Fast Forward Movement. And Kyle Whistle and Dan
That's
Beer
my
and
group, believe it or not.
oh, you are? Okay, you're in the
We
same one.
connect on
Okay.
other levels.
Okay, so you know what I'm talking about.
Yes, I do.
Well, I was talking to Kyle once, and he's like, if I was to start over, I would just do a micro. I mean, I don't think he used that term, but that's essentially, and he said, because it makes sense in this EXP model, but really there's a lot of overhead, right? And so if I'm hearing from people like him and other leaders that are telling me, yeah, this is what I brought home, and I'm just gonna not saying Kyle said this because definitely not his case, but some leaders I'm hearing, they might have brought home like 150, 200,000, maybe 300,000. When you can make that much money with a lot less headache, you know what I mean?
Oh,
And I'm
absolutely.
talking net. I'm not talking gross. I'm talking like after the bills are paid, you know?
Right. And that's huge to be able to do that. And I mean, I think that's where, let's face it, we're salespeople. There's some ego involved. And I think that people think I've got to be super successful and this is what success looks like.
Yeah.
And they get in their head, oh, you've got to have this huge office or this huge team and the photos and the company fronts and all of the things. And for me, I've really been doing a lot of soul searching lately, and success for me looks a lot more like time with my family,
Yeah.
pouring into my children. Yeah, I'd love to get some investment properties and all of that, but again, you can do that a few bucks a year. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, or a few extra bucks a month. It
Right.
doesn't require you having 45 agents to do that. And, so my cautionary tale would be don't jump in and grow too fast
Yeah.
or take on too much too fast because it will come back to bite you or it
Yeah.
could come back to bite you.
Absolutely. Yeah, start with the micro team model, which is just, hiring one admin at a time where you feel fully supported as the team leader, as the main agent on the team. And when you feel like that and you're able to show up where your genius comes through and you convert more, then at that point, you bring on an agent that's able to plug into your systems. That agent basically falls in that agent bucket just like you. And like, how cool would that be if I was to interview on a team or you were to interview on my team, let's say, and I said, Shelley, all you have to do is shake hands and kiss babies, and you're going to make $200,000 a year or whatever, and you get a plug into my system, and here's my split. You're like, yeah, where do I sign up? You
Right.
know, the value's there once you have the base laid. And I think that the foundation is a part that a lot of team leaders it's just not clicking for them. They just don't have it. They just don't have it dialed in yet. And that's where we want to help. So
Oh, I totally agree. Well, and I don't want to say it's the hardest part, but it's a hard
it
part of it,
is.
right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of agents are flying by the seat of their pants to begin with. I
Mhm.
mean, I certainly was. And to take time to document your systems and really build out something that's going to help people on your team grow. And not just teaching them how to write a sales agreement. It's so much more than that whenever you bring
Mhm.
people on. And I couldn't agree with you more that that needs to be in place, and your transaction systems and all of those processes need to be in place and smoothly functioning before
Mhm.
you try to add somebody in. I mean, you always on a team will feel sort of like you're building the plane as you're flying it, but
Yeah.
you really don't want to be so new at it that you're throwing an agent into that mix, because it won't end well, you know?
No, for sure. Okay, well, last question here. What advice would you give a solo agent who is thinking of starting a team? Which I guess you kind of answered that question already. I got off.
But it's okay. I
Yeah,
think that there's a lot that could be said there, honestly. You know, I would do some soul searching to find out what are your motives for building a team? Why? Do you really enjoy, and this is if you're building any kind of team, you know, a micro team is sort of a no-brainer in my opinion. Like everybody should do, like, have an admin, have a TC, like that is completely, you know,
agree.
non-negotiable. But
Yeah,
if you decide to go further than that, right? I think know your motives, understand your why, because if your why does not involve pouring into people and educating and really being a little selfless, I don't think building a team is right for you, because people need someone who have those qualities. Otherwise, they're going to leave. And if your foundational items aren't in place, then again, I don't know that building a team is right for you. I think point number two would be what we said. It's not going to solve all your problems. It's going to give you a few more. So understand that. And point number three is you've got to be okay with not feeling okay. Like you've got to be okay with risk. You've got to be okay with failing and falling flat on your face in front of people, right? Like, and you just got to be able to pick yourself back up and dust yourself off and say, I'm in this, and we're going to
yeah,
move forward no matter what. Um, so
yeah.
that's
Awesome. Well, thank you for being with us,
yes.
and hang around after the podcast. I have another question to ask you real quick, but all right, ladies, thanks for tuning in. And if you want to listen to this replay, you can always go listen on podcasts, wherever you download those, iTunes, Spotify. Leave us a review. And yeah, we will see everyone next week. Bye.
Hi, guys.